Greetings, fellow humans. You know me as Iceman Caesar, and this is what's up in the world today. Got a controversial topic on the schedule for today. Going to be talking about Chris Benoit and everything that happened at the end of his life. We're coming up on 11 years since everything happened, and with me doing these What's Up in the World Today videos, I kind of wanted to just do a video and just finally put out there where I stand on Chris Benoit, because I don't think up until this point I've ever really put anything out there publicly as far as to where I stand either way when it comes to Benoit. So just wanted to do this video as we're coming up on 11 years since it happened, and just put everything out there that I have, and just kind of once and for all just put it all out there, and that way my stance is out there, and I can feel I just feel like I need to put it out there. So I wanted to do a video that was discussing Chris Benoit and everything that happened. So I guess I'll start by just kind of stating exactly what my opinion, where I stand when it comes to Chris Benoit. For me, I fall in the middle. I'm kind of neutral on things because I believe that there's not enough evidence to say that he didn't do it, but I also believe that there's not enough evidence to say that he did do it. I don't think there's evidence 100% to say that he did it either way. So for me, I just have to fall in the middle, and I can't. I don't feel there's enough evidence for me to really firmly, stand behind either side, because it is an accepted opinion that it was a murder-suicide, and there's a very, very small minority of people that think that there's a chance Chris Benoit might not have done this. But for me, I just my opinion just falls in the middle, because from the everything I've researched into it, and everything I've looked into that. Everything I've learned looking into this, I've just found that there's nothing. I don't think there's enough evidence that says he did it, and but I also don't think there's enough that says he didn't. But I believe there's things that raise questions, which I'm going to talk about in the video. But I just wanted to start by saying, my stance officially is that I'm neutral on Chris Benoit. I fall in the middle. I just kind of let everybody else. I just kind of just stand back and let everybody else do whatever they want, talk about him however they want, positively or negatively. I just kind of stay out of it, because I just don't know which side to put to really stand firmly behind. So I wanted to start the video and just putting my position out there. And I'm going to be doing this video from a neutral perspective. Every point that I bring up, every little thing that I talk about, I'm going to be looking at it from a perspective of if Chris Benoit did this or if he didn't. So that way we can get both sides of the coin and figure out just exactly what happened on this awful day, awful weekend. So I'm going to be doing the video from a neutral perspective now. Like I said before, I did kind of track things down that raised questions to me that whether he actually did do this, commit this as a murder suicide. So, and just a few years in the years following it, I just could not accept that he did it. I tried. And nobody was really saying that he didn't. So I tried to accept it, but there was just something that would just never let me accept it. Just something that didn't seem right about it, and I just could never, when I tried to accept it, it just didn't. It didn't seem right, and I just knew that there was. I don't know. I tried to accept it, but it didn't. After a few years, I just decided that I needed to try and do some of my own research into it. And people had written in the years after, people had written books, and people had put out lots of writings and opinions and things like that. So there was more source material for me to dig through to kind of try and find the answers to some of the questions that I had. But I did kind of make a decision to try and do my own research. Now, I was only sitting, here in Canada, behind a computer screen. I can only do so much. So, all of the points and the research that I did, it all comes from the stuff that I've been able to drag out of just things that I've been able to read about the case from the computer. So, I know that there'd be a lot better. I'm sure there'd be a lot better evidence people could find if they were actually on the ground there. But I did the best I could with what I had, but once I started doing that research and started trying to find some of these answers, it started raising more questions to me, and it started raising more questions about the official story, and if, like, it was so quickly determined that it was a murder suicide. Like, it was just, I mean, before the day was over, it was murder suicide, and that, it was just so quick. And I just, for me, after doing research, I just found enough questions to kind of make me feel okay being in a neutral position, because even though most people would want to condemn him and say that he was guilty, for me, excuse me, I found enough information that just raised enough questions for me that I I was able to kind of say that he might not have done this, but I'm going to get into everything that helped me kind of raise those questions. Uh, but before I get into the kind of the stuff that the specific stuff about the case that I found through my research, I want to start with answering, I think, the biggest question people would probably have getting into this video at this point. If it wasn't Chris Benoit, if he didn't do this, then who? What happened? Who was it? Who did this? And for me, it's from my research, to me, everything is pointing in this one direction. And I know people, will roll their eyes and probably call me crazy, or not, doubt, probably just write me off or not believe me at all. But to me, everything that from the research that I've been doing, everything is pointing that this was a crime committed by Satanists or Luciferians, whatever they want to call themselves. But everything that I've been researching is pointing in that direction. Now, I just want to say that I don't believe that Nancy's ex had anything to do with this. He's a victim in this as well, and I'll get into that in a bit. But the fact is, Nancy's ex was a Satanist. He was very involved with them at a time. I'm not sure if he is anymore or how long he was, but at a time he was. And the thing about Satanists is once you're in, they don't it is hard to get out. It's almost like the gang's lifestyle you've heard about. Once you're in, you basically are not getting out. And they also have a very very strong sense of you mess with one of us, you're gonna mess with all of us. They have a very if somebody, especially a good person, if a good person brings trouble or turmoil to a fellow Satanist, then they look to try and get revenge and trying to try and get back at that person. So but I just want like, Nancy's ex did not have anything to do with it. But that's the thing. Once you're a Satanist, you're on the radar with them, and if they see an opportunity to create negative energy, they will go after it. Especially if they think they can get away with it, and so. But that's the more that I started to research this, the more it started to point in the direction of Satanists, Luciferians, whatever they want to call themselves. But so that's like, even if like the person connected has nothing to do with it, but the fact that they were or at one time were connected to them, to the Satanists, they still look at that as a slight towards the whole group. So it's that's it, like once you learn things about Satanists, you know how they are, you know how they work. This story starts to make a lot more sense. But they're all about creating negative energy. They're all about trying to just create evil and just all the worst negative energy they can. And when they see situations where they can create it, they will do it. And this whole situation was a case to where they saw a chance to create a lot of negative energy and do a lot of things that would help them out. So they move forward with it. But I'll get into all that. Now, look, and so going back to how I said, like Satanists have a very, you mess with one of us, very strong, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. Like, it's, once somebody has a problem with, if a Satanist, they're going to jump in, they're going to try and help, and they're going to try and do everything. Case in point, there was it is a confirmed story that I honestly cannot believe when I heard it, but it is a confirmed story that Nancy's ex's best friend told Chris Benoit to his face that he would slit Chris Benoit's throat if Benoit was doing to him what he was doing to his best friend, to Nancy's ex at that time. Like, I honestly could not believe that story. I only heard that story recently in the last like year or so, but like, and I'm not saying that Nancy's ex's best friend had anything to do with it. He didn't. He's also a victim in this. He's just a hothead cutting a promo. Like, but that's the thing. It just created an opportunity for Satanists to create negative energy and for them to feel like they could get away with it. But I just honestly, that is the mentality. It's like, Chris Benoit was having this problem with the Satanists, and people connected to him, wanted to see serious harm come to Benoit. So like, that's how they are. But I'm like, I'm not saying that Nancy's ex or the best friend had anything to do with it. They didn't. They're victims in this as well, which I'll get into. But but that's a confirmed story. They said that to Chris Benoit's face, and given everything that happened, I can't believe that hasn't been a bigger talking point around this whole thing. Like, somebody actually told Chris Benoit to his face that he would slit his throat if he was doing to him what he was doing to Nancy's ex at that time. Like, that is just I just couldn't believe that story when I heard it. But it just that is just, I just want people to realize that that's how Satanists are, and that's how intense and crazy that they can get. And so, you just and when you look at things and you realize that this crime happened almost pretty much 10 years to the day that the breakup was finalized between Nancy and her ex, like 10 years to the day pretty much. And you look at the fact that only Chris's child with Nancy was killed. Now I only know that he was the only one there, but the fact that that a little boy was actually killed in this, but I mean, like, when you look at it, it's like that was the only child that Chris and Nancy had together. So it's just when you start to look at all these things, the questions start to come into your head. And it's not hard evidence by any means. I'm just saying that I'm just putting the real story out there because this is part of the story. And it's and I just wanted to establish this first because once I start bringing up the other points, it's going to make we have to bring it back to something. And I know, like, I've done a lot of research. I know a lot about Satanists, Luciferians, and everything. And when I look into the Chris Benoit thing, it's just all the signs start pointing into their direction. So these are the things. But like I say, Nancy's ex and the best friend, they're victims because they're looked at as scapegoats. Like, Satanists see this situation, they think we can jump in here, create a lot of negative energy, and if anybody looks deeper, there's going to be a lightning rod for attention. And that's what has happened. Even a handful of people that don't believe Benoit did this, are all over Nancy's ex and other people. So it's like, that's exactly how this is designed to go. So it's like, I just wanted to establish that. But the fact is Nancy's ex was a Satanist, so that puts puts this whole situation on the radar of much worse, really, really bad people. But when they see a chance to create negative energy, they'll do it. But I'll get into that further into the video. And but I just couldn't believe that story when I heard it. But so I know people are going to be skeptical, rolling their eyes, thinking that I'm just thinking I'm just making things up. But I'll explain more. So hopefully people keep watching to the end of the video. But it's just once Satanists and how they work, how they feel about things, how they do things. It's the smoke starts to clear, and you start to see that things might not have gone down exactly as they've been reported. So now, I just wanted to establish, who might have done this, because we're talking about something where pretty much almost everybody believes that Benoit did this. So I wanted to just, as I'm bringing up these points that raise questions to the official story, you have something to go back to be like to connect it to. So I just wanted to establish who might have done this. as before I get into this, stuff that I found. So okay, so the first thing that I found, one of the, well, not maybe not the first thing I want to talk about, the biggest thing, one of the biggest things to me that I found in my research was so into doing my research, I just was kind of just trying to break down literally anything and everything that I could think of. And give you a little background on me. I worked at a call center, years and years and years ago. One of my first jobs after I was 18 out of high school, and it was a call center doing customer service for FedEx in the U.S. So I was working with all U.S. addresses and everything like that, and during the downtime, they had a system where you just punch in the zip code and it'd tell you what the city and state was. So, when I was bored, I'd always do that. So I kind of, zip codes always stood out to me more than they would have before I worked there or anything like that. So, I'd always been kind of like used to looking up zip codes and checking things like that. And so, anyways, doing research into everything, I found out that Chris Benoit had two different zip codes. One for a mailing address and one for a physical address. And being being a zip code, like zip codes standing out to me more than they would have, normally, I decided, I remembered that in the text message sent that Chris Benoit sent out, like I think it was the last thing that he sent his address out, but what he said was, my physical address is, whatever. And I always thought that always kind of made me raise an eyebrow, how official that was. Like, my physical address is, that always made me like, that was just something that I always thought, like, to say it that official, like, I thought you figure most people would just say, my address is this, but it specifically mentioned my physical address is. So, I don't know, for whatever reason, I was just trying to look under any little rock, any nook and cranny, trying to find a needle in a haystack. So I decided to take the zip code from the text message and punch it in and see what it came up with. Didn't come up with anything. Did a little more research, found out that was the mailing address zip code, and the zip code for the physical address was different. I think it was one number off or something. And so I just, to me, once I realized that, I started thinking about things, and the pieces started turning together, and I don't know. It's like, the text message said, my physical address is this, but then the mailing address zip code was used. So those two things contradict each other. And then when you're investigating a crime, and you're looking for red flags, things that don't add up, and this is a thing that doesn't add up. Text message says this is my physical address, but the mailing zip code was used. So it doesn't make sense. So now we got to look at it from both perspectives. If Chris Benoit did this, then he just got confused and made a mistake when he was sending the text messages. Obviously, if he did this, he was not in his right mind at the time. So forgetting a zip code would not be out of question, I don't think. Now, looking at it, if he did not do this, then this may have been Chris Benoit's one and only chance to kind of leave a clue, to kind of leave something behind, so that somebody looking into this would see something's off and start, at least give them a chance to raise an eyebrow, to ask a question. And to me, it's like akin to somebody being captured and led through the woods and dropping a button, or like a little piece of clothing or something, or just dropping a little small item like a needle in a haystack, that hoping that somebody coming behind looking might pick up and see it and figure out that this is the trail and start know where to look and know where to go. So like, to me, if he did not do this, then this was his opportunity to try and just let somebody know that something was off. And by saying specifically in the text, my physical address is this, and then using the mailing address zip code, that could have been his only thinking to, letting people, that just lets people know that something is off. Because if you do the check, it doesn't add up. This is my physical address, but the mailing address zip code was used. So, obviously it's not hard evidence or anything, but it could have been his one and only chance to have a cry for help. And it's, or like I say, he could have just got confused if he actually did it. So it's, to me, it's enough to raise an excuse me, sorry. It's enough to raise an eyebrow, to ask a question, and it's just something that doesn't add up. So to me, that was one of the biggest things that I found in my research. And then talking about the text, also in the text it mentioned that the dogs would be confined in a specific location, but the dogs were not confined in any location, and most certainly not in the location that the text message sent. To the point to where the dogs were roaming around free, and when the cops showed up to try and see what was going on, they had to call a neighbor to get the neighbor to come over and to corral the dogs and put the dogs away so the cops could come on and start figuring things out, figure out what happened. So it's it doesn't make that's another thing that doesn't add up. The text message said the dogs would be put away, and then they weren't. So you got to look at it from both perspectives. If Chris Benoit did this, then maybe he just forgot in the haze of the murder suicide he's committing, or he just decided not to, or for what maybe he forgot. But if he didn't do this, then I'm thinking that either if he was forced to send the text, and after he sent it, he was just done. Figured that, maybe that was his last act of defiance, knowing that the text said the dogs would be locked up, and if he doesn't lock the dogs up, nobody else that was in that house, nobody that doesn't know the dogs would be able to take those things anywhere or do anything with them, and he knows that. So that could have been his another chance to let people know that something wasn't right. The text message said the dogs would be put away, and then once he sent the text, at that point, unfortunately, Nancy and Daniel would have been gone at that point. So he pretty much could have said, I'm not doing anything else. You can put the dogs away yourself if that's what you want. And but to me, that was just it's just another thing that doesn't add up. The text said the dogs would be in a certain location, and then they weren't. So you could see it from both ways. If Chris Benoit did this, then he forgot or decided not to. But if he didn't do this, then it could have been his final act of defiance, and just to try and let people know that things are not right here. Just hopefully somebody looking into this will see these things and start. It'll lead them to finding further evidence or asking enough questions that open the right doors. So just another thing that made me raise an eyebrow and ask a question. And the next red flag, and to me this could be the biggest red flag in this whole case, that's the fact that Nancy Benoit's family received suitcases, luggage, bags, things like that. They received them back. When they looked through them, they found steroids. For Chris Benoit's steroids that he was using. And I mean, what? Are you kidding me? Like, that to me was just the most insane thing I learned about this whole thing. It's like, I just couldn't believe that, because one of the motives, especially early on, which was that roid rage. Chris Benoit was an unhinged roid head that just took too many roids and had roid rage one day and just went off the handle, became unhinged, and just went crazy. So that, like, early on, that's what that was the rhetoric pushed out, the talking points. Chris Benoit did this because of steroids, and then it became because of concussions and everything in the ring. But steroids were a big part of it, and so if steroids were being pushed as one of the big parts of the motives, I think that steroids themselves would be a pretty key fucking point. They would be a pretty key piece of evidence. So it is absolutely insane. And it's impossible that Nancy's family received luggage back with steroids in them if a legitimate investigation took place into this, because the motives is roid rage and steroids. Yet a key pieces of evidence are returned to the family. It is just and obviously they're being returned unbeknownst to the police. Obviously, the police aren't just going to give steroids back to people. They're illegal. So But I mean, like, they're part of the case. They're not giving these things, but they're gonna give clothing and things like that back. But they're not giving steroids and drugs back. So it's obviously these things are being getting. The cops don't know they're in the luggage, and if the cops don't know that these things are in the luggage and the bags, then these bags were not these luggage and bags were never searched. There was never like. There was no search conducted into this house, and trust me, not only have I been like staying at a house that's been searched by police, but I have seen the aftermath of more than one place that's been searched by police, and trust me, they absolutely tear those places apart. When they're really looking for something, they will tear that place apart. They will look for under everything. They will rip everything out of everything. So there's no way that those steroids would not have been found if an official search had been conducted. So if we can establish that an official search was not conducted, then that means that a real investigation was not conducted into this, because every single piece of evidence should have been collected. Everything should have been searched. Everything Benoit owned would have been looked through to see how much steroids he had, how many other drugs he had, how many of this. Like, all of that would have been collected. There's no way it would have been returned to the family. And so if a real investigation wasn't conducted into this, there's a big problem. And throughout history, when I look at things and you break it down and you realize that a real investigation was not conducted, most of the time that is because things are not on the level. Something happened to where this was put into place on purpose, and people are covering it up on purpose. And I'm not like I am not just jumping out to conclusions here. I'm just looking at the facts, and the fact is that Nancy's family received these luggage and stuff with the steroids back. So that tells, like, there's no way they would receive that back if an actual search was conducted into this. And if a search wasn't conducted, that means an investigation wasn't done into this, because a search is the biggest part. That's how you collect your information and your evidence. So to me, it's just I just couldn't believe that when I learned it. Now, looking at it from both perspectives, if Chris Benoit did this, I cannot explain the steroids and the luggage being returned back to the family. I can't, because if he did this, a real investigation would have been conducted, a real search would have been conducted. They would have found the steroids. The steroids would have been confiscated. They would have been like everything returned to the family would not have had key pieces of evidence in it. Like, there would not have been any of that returned to the family. So it's I can't explain the steroids being in the luggage and being returned to the family if Chris Benoit did this. Now, if Chris Benoit did not do this, then I can explain it, because that means somehow, some way, this crime was influenced, or this whole situation was influenced, so that an investigation did not take place into it. Somehow, some way. I mean, Satanists, Luciferians, whatever they call themselves, they are loyal to Satan. Who controls the world right now? Satan and his Illuminati. So it's, these guys have heavy and very serious influence. It's far-reaching. It's their influence goes, reaches very deep and very far. So they are able to influence things, and somehow, some way, they were able to influence this for an investigation to not take place. Because I'm not just. This is not my opinion. This is what I am. This is the conclusion you have to jump to based on the facts. So I'm not trying to like pile on or like accuse anyone of, like, other than Satanists, Luciferians. Like, they're the they are the ones that committed this, and the more you uncover, the more it points to them. But I just it's one of the biggest red flags to me, because it's I can't explain it. I can't explain the family getting the steroids back in the luggage if he did this, but I can't explain it if he did not do this. And it just, the fact that it took them took them no time at all to declare it a murder-suicide. Like, there was no investigation done into this. I mean, there was no test done to make sure that if one person could rig themselves up into the position that Chris Benoit was found in. Like, I'm sure Chris Benoit was a strong guy. I'm sure he probably could have done it. But did they do a test to make sure? No. They just declared it as a murder-suicide and said he did it. There was no test done through this to make sure that he was able to do that. And so, there were no questions asked as to how he was able to rig himself up like this and why, what the motive, what the reasoning would have been why for him to towel off his neck around where the lining would have been at his throat. Like that doesn't make any sense. I mean, and then would he have been able to do that? Would he have been able to get into that position by himself? These are questions that need to be brought up and need to be answered. And they're answered through an actual investigation by people recreating the scene and going through exactly, okay, he did it like this. It would have been easy because of this. It would have been impossible because of this. You have to go through it. That though I wasn't done. It was just determined in less than a day. So it's just the more you look at things like that, the more these questions start to become bigger, and the more questions you have, and it's just the more the official story starts to seem like it's not the truth. And like this is not just an opinion I'm jumping to. I've pulled the facts out of the case, and this is the only conclusion you can come to if you're looking at this from a neutral perspective. But it's just like the toweling thing on the night. Like, I mean, why don't, like, if somebody was trying to make him suffer and draw that out and to really make him, then the toweling makes sense. But for him to do that in line with the murder-suicide doesn't really make sense to me, because he would have been a lot more pain without the towel. But it's just it's an awful thing to think about. But it's just things like that to me didn't add up, and there were questions that needed to be asked and answered, and they weren't. So it's just more reasons to raise an eyebrow for me. So now this next point I'm going to talk about, it's not hard evidence, even close to hard evidence. I can't prove it, and it would be in the category of hearsay at best. So I mean, I'm sure people will write this one off if they're going to accept everything else. I'm not blaming anybody if they don't accept this, but this is part of what happened. This is part of the journey in my research. I'm not lying. This is just what I experienced, what came about, what happened with everything. So, but I just want to preface it with, I know this isn't hard evidence, and I know it's I can't prove it. This is just my experience and then what I'm telling people. But it happens, so I got to include it. But okay, so at the time that I was doing this Chris Benoit research, leading up to it, I had already done a lot of research about Satan and his Illuminati, and all the stuff that goes with that. So and like 9/11 truth, so I knew about how the world was being controlled, and how it just everything was, the smoke was really starting to clear as far as that goes. Excuse me, sorry. But so, and then at the same time, I was researching Chris Benoit and what happened. And to me, I just I never really thought the two could or ever would be connected, because it's like Chris Benoit is just a pro wrestler. I mean, Satan and his Illuminati are they're controlling the world. They're they've killed presidents. They control countries. They can they just do so much on such a grand scale that I never think that they would care or have any attention about one pro wrestler. That's I mean, Chris Benoit is wasn't even an Austin or a Rock that had the kind of mainstream impact that they did. He was just he was kind of known amongst wrestling fans, and he's just a really, really great wrestler, one of the best in the world. So you would never think that he would be on any kind of radar for that. But since I was researching the two at the time, I kind of just thought, hey, why not? What the hell? Why don't I just search search them both? So I did a search, Chris Benoit, Illuminati. Not expecting anything to come up, not expecting to have any results. I just kind of wanted to search it just to get it off my mind, because I thought, hey, why, might as well, what if there is some connection? So I searched it, and all the results on the first page, there was nothing except one. And I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I didn't expect anything, but there was one blog page, and seeing it, and so how you have the when you're searching sites, you'll have the site preview, and a lot of time it's like an imprint from a previous time, so it's from months ago or weeks ago, and
And so what it looked on the search listing was, it had, I could see the picture, and I could see like how the blog looked and everything, and in the information space it just had, like, you know how sometimes it'll give you like half a sentence from the start, half a sentence from the middle, half a sentence from here, just, random kind of half sentences just to give you a little, just to give you a preview of what's on the page to kind of entice you in. And so, I remember from the picture, I remember seeing, everything was, there was a background to it. It had a color scheme. There was, it was designs on it. There was a profile picture to the person. It had, like you could see there was lots of blog posts and everything, and you just see, normal. It was your blog, but somebody had obviously put a lot of effort and attention into it, and the headline was like, Chris Benoit, Illuminati, NWO connection or whatever, not wrestling, NWO. So I was interested. I was immediately intrigued, and then so from the box, from the I'll get to that in a second. So you see those little things in the site preview, and so from what I read there, it intrigued me enough to click. And see, I don't usually definitely don't click on everything, because there's viruses, and just sometimes people are trying to lead you down a disinformation rabbit hole. So I'm really careful about things that I click on. I don't click on every website just because I'm interested. But this one, from what I read, I was like, okay, I have to read the rest. I'm going to talk about what I read in just a second, but before, I want to talk about what happened when I clicked it. So I was enticed enough that I just wanted to see what the rest of the sentences in the paragraph was from the little preview I got. When I clicked it and was taken to the blog, man, I got the creepiest, eeriest feeling I've ever got in my entire life. A chill ran down my spine. I know what that feeling means. Now when people say it, like when I got to this page, it was the thought that immediately jumped into my head was, this page has been given a lobotomy. Like, it was just nothing like the preview looked. Everything had been wiped. All the designs and color schemes gone. It was just like a bland brown. Like there was little information, but didn't really make sense. There was like a birth, I think there was like a birth date, but then there was no all the blog posts have been wiped. The profile picture was like an empty desk or something. Like it was just there was just no real information. It was just it wasn't like. There was like just enough writing that you knew it wasn't like a blank template, but like, man, nothing like what the preview I saw on the search listing was. And given what the content was, what he was talking about, man, it just gave me the. I'm afraid to admit, man. It gave me a scary feeling. Like I was nervous. I got nervous because like. It just the page looked like so alive and had so much energy in the preview, and when I went to this, when I actually clicked on it, was taken there, just complete nothingness. And like the thought that kept jumping into my head was a lobotomy. If you've ever seen movies where people have got a lobotomy and how they're like that, it's like, and it creeped me out. It freaked me out. Like I know, like people roll their eyes and stuff like this. It's not. I know it's not hard evidence. It's just my experience. It's what happened. So like, and it was just it was such a contrast from the preview to what was there that I was just, man, I just kind of shut everything off, and I was done my research for that day, because that was like, it was that kind of a crazy moment. But I want to talk about what I saw, the information I saw in the little site preview, which is kind of would make sense as to if like somebody would not want that information if there was something to it. But so in the site preview there were little fragments, and there were like two little bits of, I think I got little pieces of two sentences, two different paragraphs. The first little fragment I got it said that Chris Benoit had recently become a target of Satanists and the Illuminati, and then it started, and ... then it started to break off, and then it went, and then the next wording that started was obviously a different paragraph, but that second paragraph, it was talking about, it was mentioning something and talking about the Sharon Tate mass murders by Satanists. and then ... then it broke off. And when I read those two things, like especially the second one, I was like, wow, I need to read what the rest of this was. Fortunately, never got to read the rest of it because, like I say, when I clicked on it, I went to the lobotomy page. It was completely wiped. Everything was gone, and I never got to read it. And I really wish I could have, because even that would have been interesting just to see what kind of puzzle pieces this person found and was putting together with what they were putting on this blog. But so now looking at what everything I just said there, if Chris Benoit did this, then obviously this person, somehow, like, this person just obviously realized let their imagination run wild, kind of came to their senses and just wanted to wipe everything, any trace of it off. So they just deleted everything, got rid of it, and they did this on their own. Like, if Chris Benoit did this, somebody just got carried away and just got rid of everything and just didn't want any trace of it. If Chris Benoit did not do this, then I really hope it's not the case that something happened to this person that created this blog. I really hope that obviously I won't want the conclusion to be that Chris Benoit did not do this, but I hope that nothing happened to anybody else. But if Chris Benoit didn't do this, then somebody figured out that this person was putting it out there, trying to expose it, and put a stop to it. So hopefully nothing serious happened to this person or anything like that. If they were onto something, and if they were trying to expose the truth. So it's but it could be either thing. It could be somebody's imagination running wild, and it also could be somebody that was able to figure this out pretty early on, that the people that did this put a stop to it very quickly and very thoroughly, because like I say, it was completely wiped. Nothing there. There was no rock to look under, like no haystack. Everything was gone. But so that pretty much brings me to kind of all the research and everything I was able to pull out of all the stuff I was reading about the case. Now I really just want to say that I know that there's a big chance that Chris Benoit could be guilty, and that he definitely did this, and that this is just me trying to fit the pieces together that just don't fit together. I realize that definitely could be the case. I'm not gonna lie, I was a huge Chris Benoit fan. I had lots of love for Chris Benoit. I was he's definitely a hero of mine. I was connected to him on his journeys, his wins, his losses. I was always, hoping for good things for him. He was just one of my favorite people in wrestling. So it's not a lie. I was a huge Chris Benoit fan. So, this, I definitely could be just, not wanting to believe the worst and trying to just, desperately find anything that says he didn't do it. I realize that could be the case, but I just don't think that's what I'm doing here, because with the evidence I pulled out, it's not opinion, it's facts about the case. And when you look at the facts, there's only certain conclusions you could jump to if you're smart, if you're looking at it intelligently. So it's I just don't think that I'm trying to put things together that don't work. I don't think I'm trying to make something out of nothing. I really do believe that something. I guess if I say my opinion is neutral, but if you force me to you have to choose either way, one way or the other. You have to. He did this or he didn't. I would say that he didn't, because everything I know about Satanists, Luciferians, whatever they want to call themselves, everything I know about them, and then all the facts I've been able to pull out of the case, just everything I know about Chris Benoit. That's the thing. The rhetoric coming out after this happened was, every single person said, "I can't believe he did this. I have no way to explain him doing this. If you would have asked me to make a list of the people that most likely not to do this, he would have been at the top. I would have trusted him with my life. I would have trusted him with my family. I have no explanation for you as to how or why Chris Benoit did this. I never saw anything that led to believe that he could do this. There was no real big changes in behavior leading up to this that said he would do this. Like, there's just nobody could figure it. Everyone just said, like, I mean, I have to say, you have to believe he did it because that's what they say. But the Chris Benoit I know is not this. Would never have done this. So, that was the rhetoric coming out, and it changed as the years went on. People started to say, oh, he laughed at these types of jokes, and he laughed at this things, and he yelled at this wrestler one time, and he did this, so he obviously could have done it. And but that's the thing. The rhetoric has changed from right after it first happened, and it's and now people are trying to make the pieces fit and saying, oh yeah, he did this, or he laughed at this joke, so he definitely could have done this, but because everything about Chris Benoit said that there's no way he would have done this. This is the guy that would have literally flown halfway across the world and then flown halfway across the world. He would have taken, no matter how many days it took to fly back, he would have done it just to spend half an hour with his wife and child, with Daniel and his other two children. Like he would just for 30 minutes. He would go on a week long flight journey just to spend that 30 minutes. And even though he could have stayed where he was and relaxed for 4 or 5 days and called his family on the phone, that wasn't who he was. He wanted to be with them. He wanted to experience their energy. So it's just everything about Chris Benoit just says to me, it's like, if I was forced to pick one way or the other, I would say he didn't. But I just I hope that I've been able to present this information and let people know that I'm not just trying. I don't think I'm trying to make things up here. I'm trying to pull it out from the facts. And when you look at the facts, the questions are there, and it leaves you room to at least raise an eyebrow and say, I think there's room for us to talk about this a little more. So, and then going back to who did this and why, it's like this is a risk that Satanists, Luciferians, whatever they want to call their scumbag selves. But this is a risk that they were willing to take for a few reasons, and that's why when you look at this, it all points back to them, and you can just see it. But we're gonna break it down right now. So one of the reasons why they would have taken this risk in this situation is the existence of scapegoats if needed, and that's why I say that Nancy's ex and like the best friend and other people involved in this, they're the victims, because the Satanists, Luciferians, whatever, the ones that are in control, like they see this and they see a scapegoat. They know that if they push forward and anybody starts to ask questions, or if anybody looks further into this, they got a bunch of lightning rods for that attention and for the accusations, and it already starts. People already throw accusations their way, but it's like, but that's why I say they're the victims in this too, because they like the Satanists, Luciferians that are in control, they see the scapegoats. That's why they move forward, because they know that even if things don't go exactly right, it's not gonna the spotlight's not gonna come back to them. It's gonna go somewhere else. The other reason why they take this risk is that once they see there's a scapegoat, now they can move to seek revenge for the wrong done to their fellow or former Satanist, whatever. So now they see a scapegoat. Now they see, like, okay, now it's payback time. Now we can make this person pay, and nothing's gonna happen to us. Excuse me, sorry. But those are two big things. Having a scapegoat in the whole situation, and then being able to bring revenge to positive energy, because a wrong has been done to a fellow scumbag, or negative energy. So they want to put that back. They want to put that back onto the person that did it. So that's another reason why they would take this risk. Another reason why they would take the risk creates so much negative energy. I mean, for somebody like Chris Benoit to be accused of a crime like this, and for people to think he did that, so much negative energy. I mean, God, I feel for his other children, trying to, knowing their dad was a loving, good father, and just being forced to accept this awful part of his character that people said was him at the end of his life. It's just, I so feel for him. His parents, everybody, all of his family and all his friends, all the negative energy from one of your best friends that you love, that you would have, that you would have trusted your family with, to do something like this, like the negative energy it creates there. The millions of people that were Chris Benoit fans that pushed themselves further and did accomplish things because of the motivation from Chris Benoit, or just because of having Chris Benoit as an example, and now knowing that like somebody that could commit an awful murder suicide like this would have such an impact on their life. It's so much negative energy that was created off of this, and with people that don't like wrestling, they just drummed up all that negative energy in them as well. So they were just all over it. It was just so much negative. It was just the blackest, darkest cloud of just were the worst kind of energy just surrounding anybody connected to this. So that's why it was a risk worth taking for them. But now here is what I believe was probably the number one motivation in them taking this risk, and that was the fact that it potentially kills WWE and wrestling on a big mainstream scale. Because that to me that's probably the reason why they said, okay, we're taking this chance. And then obviously, they have to have the scapegoats and stuff like that. But once they this was probably the thing that caused them to was the catalyst for them to actually move forward. Because that you look back, if you look at the history of wrestling and WWE, WWF, they have attacked Vince so many times and lost. It's just, it's pathetic that they even try anymore. But they've attacked him so many times and lost. And then trust me about the thing about them. They hate losing and they hate wrestling. Like I said in that other video, at the heart and soul of wrestling is good overcoming evil. So they absolutely despise wrestling. They hate it. They want to wipe it off the face of the earth. But they can't. Good always overcomes evil. Wrestling is about that. Wrestling will always survive. Wrestling will always be here. Wrestling will never be wiped away. And that's why wrestling will always overcome and good will always overcome. Well, that's the thing. I guarantee they did not think WWE and wrestling would be able to recover from something like this. Somebody so beloved and such a big star. Benoit was about to win a world title that weekend. For somebody in such a profile position to do such an awful, horrible thing, I guarantee they thought WWE would never recover. They would regress to a level that would just be in the shadows and back into just the grungy, dingy rundown board buildings, and just the wrestling in the big mainstream, all the bright lights, big stages would be gone. I guarantee they thought wrestling would never recover from this, because it's just, that's what they think. They're stupid. They think that they can kill wrestling. They think that people, they just think that one thing like this would ever allow people to sever their connection to wrestling. But that's how stupid they are, and that's how pathetic they are. It's just they do things like this, and they could never ever reach their goal, and it's so awful that we have to deal with the fallout, because they're able to push forward and do all their evil stuff. But that's free will, that's everything, and that's why we just have to keep fighting against them and keep fighting to get control of this world, to bring it to the best versions of itself, and then we can look back into the crimes that have happened in history and bring justice to them and bring it back to them. So when we look back to things like this Chris Benoit thing, once we're in the position to really open it up and dig further, there's got to be something out there that says that will say that this is the truth. Chris Benoit didn't do this. This was a plan put forth by by some high level Satanists, Luciferians, whatever the hell they want to call themselves. But it was just this is a plan to try and kill WWE and wrestling, and they were using the Benoit family and everybody as pawns in their little plan here. But to me, that is probably why this whole thing was put into place, because they saw the opportunity. They saw the opportunity arise because of the problems that had become between everybody. They saw the scapegoats. They saw the chance to seek revenge. They saw the negative energy. They saw the chance to take out WWE and wrestling. So they took it. And to me, that's kind of where I've settled on. That's what I believe is the truth in this whole situation. But that brings me to the end of it. That's all I got. That's all I got. I just wanted to put out all the information I just wanted to put out the facts that I was able to bring out of the case, the conclusions that I came to, then let everybody know just if it wasn't Chris Benoit, who might have done this, why would they have done this, how did they do it, and I hope I've been able to explain that properly today. It's it's a tough thing. It's it's such a it's been accepted from day one pretty much that this was a murder suicide, and it's nobody there's never been anybody really raising those questions that if he didn't do this, and it's I know that I didn't bring up anything today that says he 100% didn't do it, so that's why I stay in a neutral position, because I don't want, as much as I believe, as I said that if I had to choose a side, I would choose that he didn't do it. I know that it's not 100%. I still know there's a chance that he could have done this. That I'm trying to put the pieces together in something that didn't happen. I don't believe that I am, but I know there's a chance that I am. So that's why I just stay neutral, and I stay out of it, and I just let it be, because I just don't know 100%. And unfortunately I think that it's probably been too long for it to be kind of proven 100% either way. I don't think. I mean, I hope and pray there's some smoking gun out there that says that he didn't do it, that we'd be able to find it, and really bring justice and bring the truth to this whole situation. I really hope that's the case, but I don't think. I'm not holding my breath for sure. I don't. It probably will never be proven 100% either way. So that's why I stay neutral. I'll never push for Benoit in the Hall of Fame. I'll never chant his name at live events. I'll never promote him positively on social media. I'm not going to actively argue his innocence. I'm not gonna actively jump into conversations where people are vilifying him or saying bad things about him and say, hey, it's like I'm not gonna do that because like I say, I don't know. But on the flip side, I'm also not going to actively jump. I'm not going to actively participate in pushing the fact that he was guilty. I'm not going to actively participate in vilifying him. I'm not going to actively participate in erasing him from history. If a match comes up that he was in, I'll say his name. If I'm talking about a moment or a memory where like WrestleMania 20, it was still. And when I see Benoit and Eddie hug at the end, it's like gets me emotional. So, I'm not gonna totally erase him and participate in that. But I'm just pretty much gonna just stay out of it altogether and let it be. Let everybody else conduct themselves however they want to when it comes to the case, and just keep looking and hoping that one day we'll either get that smoking gun that says he didn't do it, or maybe I'll finally find that one piece of information that can allow me to accept that he did it, because to this day I cannot just say that I can't sit there and say what he did it, and I'm just making things up, because especially now that I've done all the research and got all this information, there's just no way I can ever come to that. So I just stay neutral. I know it's not a sexy position, sitting on the fence, but unfortunately that's where I'm sitting for this. And it's just one thing I just want to go just to say that Chris, back to what I was saying, everything we know about Chris Benoit, we know that he never done this. It's just it's there was one there was another piece of information that I forgot to bring up earlier that I wanted to mention before I ended the video, and that's leading up to the end of it, in the weeks and months leading up to the end of his life, Chris Benoit was telling people that he felt like he was being followed, and weird things were happening, and he just felt like he was being followed, and for this to happen, for him and his family to die in the way they did, and I just really, frustrates me that nobody that Chris Benoit told this to ever kind of floated the idea out there, like, hey guys, maybe we want to pump the brakes on this whole murder-suicide conclusion, because he was telling me that he was feeling he was being followed like literally weeks ago. Like he was telling me things like that were happening. So I think we want to look into this a little bit further. Like nobody did that. Nobody, to this day, you've never really heard anybody close to Benoit float the possibility that he didn't do this. It's the best that anybody's done is basically said, I don't know. I can't ever explain to you how he did this, but and he was the best guy in the world up until the moment I learned about this. So that's all I can say. But nobody ever really said, I just think there's certain, he told me that he felt he was being followed and things like that, and then him and his family are brutally murdered a few weeks later. So maybe we should investigate this a little further. Things like that just frustrated me, but it goes into like you look at that from both sides. If Chris Benoit did this, then obviously his head was not right leading up into this, and that's clearly he wasn't in the right state of mind, and and he actually did something like this. But if he didn't do it, then these scumbags were scoping him out, figuring out where he what he did, where he went, how long it took him to get there. This whole, everything started after he got home from the doctors that Friday night or that Friday afternoon. And I mean, it's like, if he didn't do this, they knew how long it would take him to get to the doctors. They knew that they knew when he would go to the doctors. They knew the route he was taking. So if he was going that way, he's going to his doctor. And so, if he didn't do this, then, he figured it out when they were trying to figure out his movements, and the fact that they figured him out, and when he got home from the doctor that afternoon, there were some bad customers waiting for him, and there would have been nothing he could have done about it. If if he comes home and they have Nancy duct taped to a chair and Daniel subdued, there's nothing he can do. He can't fight for that. So it's like, that was another thing I almost forgot to bring up. I mean, the Nancy and the duct tape to the chair, like, everyone says that Chris Benoit went nuts and lost his mind and went over the edge and just freaked out and did this, but they say he lost his mind and freaked out, yet did something calculated, like taped somebody to a chair. So that really doesn't add up to me. But if he did this, somehow he did freak out, lose his mind, and did something as calculated as taped his wife to a chair for some reason. But if he didn't do this, then she could have been taped to the chair, because when he got home from the doctor, they needed to make sure that he was not going to do anything, and he was going to cooperate and do absolutely everything they said. So it's so I mean, I know I could be a huge Chris Benoit fan making things up, but when you just look at all of this and all of the information that's out there, all the facts, I don't believe that's what this is. I believe that I'm a huge Chris Benoit fan that refused to give up on my hero, that refused to give up on somebody that I have a lot of love for, and refused to give up on an innocent man. And I just, from what I've seen, he's I believe that the facts and the research that I've done points to him being innocent. So I'm gonna stay neutral. I'm staying in my position. But if anyone challenges me, I'm ready for it, and I welcome it, because if I am a Benoit fan making this up, I want to see the light, so to speak, and I want to see the truth, and I want to be able to get to a point where I can accept that he did this, and want the consequences that come with everything to be put on him. So it's I just I almost forgot to mention those two things before we finish. I'm glad I remembered to get those in there. But it's just with everything, I just don't think I'm making this up. I think I'm onto the truth. It's just there's a smoking gun out there. I just obviously I can't find it from my computer, but hopefully if it's out there, somebody's able to find it. But that brings me to the end. That's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. I don't think I missed anything else. I know I've never addressed this publicly, and I've never talked about Benoit, put my opinion out there about him. So with me doing these videos, I just wanted to just wanted to put it out there once and for all, so people know I'm a huge wrestling fan. But the fact that I've never talked about Chris Benoit, either positively or negatively, it's like I'm sure some people are wondering what my opinion is. So, just wanted to put it out there for people, and just to put the facts out there, because if I am onto something, if I am close to the truth, hopefully that it can creates a spark that gets somebody to find that smoking gun, and finally we can see the truth in this awful awful situation. But with the end, before I end it, I just want to send love, strength, peace, good energy, healing, just absolutely all the best, strongest energy I can out to all the family and friends of Nancy and Chris and Daniel, and it's just there's his kids, his parents, all the family, the friends, the fans. I know there's so many. There's so many people that are connected to Chris and Nancy and Daniel, and just there's so much hurt and heartache coming off that. So I just want to send my strongest prayers out to everyone. Either way, whether Benoit did this or not, all of these people connected are hurting the same way no matter what. So I just want to send all that energy out there and just ask the Lord to take him into his healing hands, and just be with them and help them get through this. Even though it's coming up on 11 years, it's still as hard as ever. It doesn't. It gets easier, but it doesn't. So just please be with them as best as possible, Lord, and ask you to give as much strength and power to the Archangel Uriel, who you've tasked to help us during and after tragedy. So I just ask you, and I also ask you to give as much strength and power to the Archangel Gabriel, who's tasked to strength to the weak and to help the lost and the fallen. Just we need all the help we can get, and you've given us the weapons of the archangels. So we just ask that you just take us into your healing hands and help everybody connected with this awful tragedy. And I ask that if Chris Benoit didn't do this, please deliver justice to this situation, and please deliver the justice of the smoking gun, so we can finally figure out the truth, and we can finally put this to rest and move forward in the right way, and coming off of the truth, and the people that did this get justice, and the people that did not do this can finally have peace. And if Chris Benoit did this, then he deserves all the consequences that are coming with it. And I just ask that you deliver it to him from not only from Nancy and Daniel and the family and friends, but for every fan that he had, for that relationship that he violated, and the energy that he corrupted. And I just if he did do this, then I hope he really he was in a much more special position than other people. So if he did something like this, I hope that you see the appropriate consequences delivered to him. And just not. I mean, there's kind of no real way to not end this on a downer note, but just to try and pull something positive out of it. You can look at it and see that there was at least some positive to come out in the fact that there was a renewed focus on the wellness policy and concussions, and just wrestlers starting to take care of themselves a little bit more than they had in the past. Wrestlers are very, very tough. It's a very, very tough business. It's a tough legacy in the business. So wrestlers kind of feel the need to push themselves further and farther and that might actually push them into further injuries. So it's like toughness is knowing when to push and pull back. So it's so the fact that it's becoming a lot easier for wrestlers to say, it's time for me to I need to give this a week or two to get right, so I don't make this worse and make the rest of my life live in hell. So at least there's some positive to come out of it, and it's obviously we'd rather have this positive off of not such an awful situation, but at least there's a little bit of good and positive to come out of this, even though it's really tough to say something's good and positive coming out of a horrible tragedy like this. But it's at least there is increased attention on drugs and wellness and concussions and just injuries, and just just an increased focus on the well-being of wrestlers and the wrestling business in general. So that brings me to the end of everything. I hope I presented everything in a a good, respectful way. I definitely don't want to bring any disrespect to the any of Nancy or Daniel's or Chris's family or anything like that. I don't want to. I'm not trying to bring accusations to anybody but Satanists or Luciferians. They're the only ones that are responsible for this. Everybody else is a victim in this, and in this specific situation. So I just didn't want to sit on this for the rest of my life, and not put it out there. And with these videos and just putting this kind of stuff out there, I felt that it was worth putting this video together and just presenting it out there once and for all, and letting people know where I stand one way or the other. So I know it's controversial, and I really thank everybody for coming along for the ride today, and we'll see you soon down the road. Much love and God bless. Peace.